Hi guys, I have got my full body silicone Dakota here, and I just changed her into this outfit from Auntie Crystal. I decided to feature her today because I am still selling her. I will have her eBay auction in the link below. Just some quick information of questions that I typically get about her. She is about 19, 20 inches long. She is Dakota by Angela Lewis. She wears like a large newborn, small 0 to 3 month clothing. Her diapers, right now she has a newborn size diaper on her, but she would fit a preemie would be too small. I have had, she's got an honest newborn diaper on her now, but I have had size 1 on her before and they fit just fine. Like I said, I'll have her auction listed below. She is a full body. She does not have drinking wet. She is a girl. Oh, it's a crease in her foot. Is that a piece of cat hair? She does not take like a typical pacifier. I was able to find, hopefully you guys can see this, these ones at Walmart. They're 0+ Parents' Choice ones. She will come with a brand new set of these ones in their package, so, and this one, so that her new mommy or daddy will know what to look for her. But they're what fit in her the best. Otherwise you have to modify pacifiers for her because she does not have a full open mouth. She is really adorable. She's sleeping and she has like a reddish auburn hair. I know the lighting in here isn't the best and I did not comb her hair before, but here is kind of a closer up of her head. So anyways, Crystal and I have been talking lately and I decided to kind of do a theme that seems to be, or not necessarily a theme, but a question that is asked quite often in the Reborn community about adoption, having children versus the dolls. Sorry guys. Adoption versus the dolls, or foster care. I know personally I've been asked this question a few times, and it's known. I have other videos on my channel. I do have 2 children. They're not young children, but they're not teenagers. I don't even have preteens yet. But they are younger. Kind of. I'm not going to go into details about how old they are. But I do have 2 children. We would like to have at least 1, if not 2 more. And if we cannot have 1 or 2 more, we have talked about doing foster to adopt, which in our area is very much needed. We are not picky about race. That does not matter to us. Typically in our area, a lot of the foster to adopt kids are going to be Hispanic, Latino, mixed race. I'm not being racist, but that's just the demographic of our area of kids that are in foster care. There are kids of other, like a Caucasian children that are in foster care in our area, but it's just the reality of our area. When we lived up in North Dakota, when we lived in Fargo, most of the kids in foster care there are Caucasian. While when we lived in Minot, because we were by a couple different reservations, most of the kids in foster care there were Native American. So it's the demographic of where you're at. But we're not picky about race. There are a few people in the foster care system that should not be foster care parents because they are picky about race. When we lived in Fargo, sorry guys, something in my mouth. When we lived in Fargo, we started the foster care process before my husband got deployed. We were starting it. And honestly, one of the questions they did straight out ask is, do you want children of a similar race to you? First of all, do you want foster to adopt, or do you just want to do foster care? We said foster to adopt. Then the next question was, do you want children of your race, or are you open to other races of children? So that right there tells you that there are people out there in the foster to adopt, Jack, no, that are only wanting basically the same race that they are. But so for us, adoption is still on the table. Some people ask, well, you have real kids, so why the dolls? I had the dolls before I had kids. I've always loved dolls. I've loved dolls since I was little. I've always had dolls. Even in high school, I had dolls. In high school, I was able to take home the Baby Think It Over project, and that's when I fell in love with them, which then led me to Crystal's Yahoo group, which then brought me to other forums that had Reborns and Silicone. So I've branched out from what I had. Like in high school, it was a Cabbage Patch Kid. My friend and I each had a Cabbage Patch Kid that they were just like these little 12-inch Cabbage Patch Kids. But she would stay at my house on the weekend and we'd play around with the Cabbage Patch Kids. At one point, my mom drug out some of my sorry guys, my eye itches. Drug out some of my childhood dolls and we'd play around with those. So I've always loved dolls. When my husband and I got together, he got me my first few dolls, or he got me my first doll, and it was just, it's been a collecting experience since then. He's fine with my dolls, but I've had dolls the whole time. I may not have done much with them from time to time. After my first known miscarriage, I still played around with my dolls, but it was kind of harder. Then I grew to love them more. After I lost my twins, that's when pretty much they all got packed up and put away. I think after I lost the twins, the first time that I really took the dolls out and did anything was when Crystal came to visit. And then honestly, after she left, they once again got packed up. But after she left was when we found out I was pregnant with my son, not long after Crystal had visited. So I was okay with it, and I actually started selling off some of those, some of my real cares. I sold off, I think, all my real cares. So I had my son. 17 months later, I had my daughter. And then, sorry guys, I have no idea what Jack's doing. But I was busy being a mom for the longest time, so dolls were not a priority. I just had my neonates at that point. They were all packed up in the boxes. When we lived in Minot, for the most part, all of them were packed up in the boxes. Just before we moved was when I, on a fluke, had went on eBay and found my Real Care 2 plus Real Care 2 control unit, the long-handled control unit. I hadn't planned on getting one, another Real Care, but the price for the control unit was so low. My husband's like, get it now, you'll regret not getting it later. So get it, we'll worry about the doll later, because the dolls were easier to find than the control unit. So I got the control unit, and then about 2 months later I got my Real Care, a new Real Care. I got a Japanese boy. And then just before we moved, I got a Caucasian female, Luna. So that kind of pushed me back into the dolls again. Okay, Jack is just spazzing out and I have no idea why. But I felt at that point my kids were old enough. I was starting to kind of have baby fever again. And then once we got down here, it was not long after we moved here, I actually got my full body silicone, which I really love. My full body silicone. It's just, she's too heavy for me, and with having the cats plus my kids, I need something a little more durable. My kids aren't allowed to really touch her because while she is semi-durable, silicone can tear. And I'm afraid they're going to tear her. And then I've got like spaz running in the background. The cat hair factor with the silicones. So while I appreciate silicones, I love the realism of silicones. I love the fact that you can bathe a full body silicone. Albeit not all that often you can bathe them and such. I just find they're heavy. Maybe if I found the right partial body silicone where they're not as heavy, I'd maybe consider it, but they're still fragile. I just would prefer to get a bigger Reborn, to tell you the truth. So I got back into dolls. With Crystal's encouragement, I started doing more YouTube videos. I kind of was teetering on the fence about doing them in Minot. I had filmed a few with my American Girls and my daughter's American Girls, but I think I posted them, but I never made them live. And then I deleted them when I started, pretty much over around the time that I got Dakota. So I've always enjoyed dolls. And we're in a phase in life from the point of, there's some complications after my daughter. My OB had said that we had to take a minimum 2 years before we could talk about having another child because of the complications after having my daughter. And 2 years after my daughter was born was right around the time we were moving to Minot. And I was not comfortable having a baby while we lived in Minot. The local hospital there, I did not care for. I did not trust. I know people have had babies in there and have had no issues. Personally, I did not like that hospital system. The hospital system that we used was a 90-minute, 2-hour drive away. And I know that my kids, both of my kids were born via C-section. My daughter came on her planned C-section. My son had to be born a week before his C-section date due to not really complications with him, but I was having some blood pressure issues, and I went into preterm labor really early with him. They never stopped contractions. But the day before he was born, my blood pressure rose, as well as my contractions were getting super strong to the point that they were starting to become very uncomfortable. And I don't dilate, so we had to do a C-section for him, although he was a planned C-section due to his size. But because I had 2 large babies back to back and my frame, my doctor's like, you need to wait 2 years. Because of the complications of going into preterm labor with my son, well, I didn't with my daughter, But the complications post-op and during the operation with my daughter, I was not comfortable going to the local hospital. So that means I would have to travel 90 minutes, which also meant if there was an emergent situation, I would have to use the hospital that I didn't want to use. So it was kind of one of those, well, I guess this is the end. I don't want to have a baby at this hospital. Then when we got transferred down here, I'm a little more hopeful. I really like the hospital system here. I'm comfortable with the hospital system here, especially after having surgery. Being in the hospital here, it's a different floor. I'm fine having a child here. The only issue is, when we first moved here, I didn't feel healthy enough to have a baby. Due to my size, I knew there would be complications with a C-section. So I wasn't comfortable having a baby. So once my husband and I we were looking at moving here, and I had started thinking about honestly having weight loss surgery years before I actually did it. So I've had the weight loss surgery, but one of the things with weight loss surgery is I have to wait 2 years before becoming pregnant. And I'm 9 months in, so I have 15 months before we can look at that option. If that ends up becoming a non-option for us, then we are going to look at foster to adopt. So yes, I am looking at the option to possibly adopt in the future. Real cares do not take, real cares and reborns and such. It gives you that nurture factor, but it also gives, or at least for me, it gives me the nurture factor, but it also, I can't even think right now. It gives me the nurture factor, but it also, it's not the same as having a child for me. But, you know, if I have another baby, I probably still will be making YouTube videos, probably won't be as often, but there'd be more changing videos than outing videos, because honestly, taking out 2 older children and a reborn or a real care or a silicone is a lot. I'm not going to take out a real baby and then a doll and people like giving you the side eye, unless it's a situation where my daughter wants to take her doll out or we're going, that's all on her. But I don't know if I'd be filming at that. But yeah, so for me, it just kind of not necessarily fills a void, but it fills an itch, so to speak. I wouldn't call it a void because nothing can take the place of a real child. I know there's some people out there that say that their doctors tell them that they need to get a reborn because they have had a child loss or an infant loss. It's never going to fill that spot, in all honesty. It might give you that, like I said, that nurture factor, but it's not going to fill the void of a child. I've been there. I've had the miscarriages, the two miscarriages when one was a set of twins that we know of. There are probably more than that we don't know of because of our fertility issues. But, so for me, we are looking into adopting. We're looking into foster care, and I've heard some people complain, well, I can't. Or I want a child, but I can't do it because of the cost. Well, at least in the States, if you do foster, you don't get that much money. You get some money from the foster care system to help with the children. Sorry guys, it can kind of help if that's what you're seriously looking into. But also with the foster care system, You do have the potential of the child going back to the family. Sometimes you have the potential of being able to adopt the child. So there's lots of factors in there. I know when we were up in Fargo looking to go through to do foster care, there was a dire need for baby foster care. There was a dire need, and like we said, we would take the newborn to 2-year-old age range, and they were all excited that we said we would take that range, because there's a lot of parents in the foster care system that want like the 2 to 5-year-olds where they're sleeping through the night, they're potentially potty trained, so you don't need to deal with diapers. Daycare is cheaper once they hit the age of 2. But they still haven't been quote unquote screwed up by the system, or screwed up enough by their parents. So, I mean, that's just a personal preference. If we look at doing foster down here, we probably would go for that same age range, and we would look at doing foster to adopt down here again. Because I just love, I love babies. I was carrying around my son's rabbit at a show the other day, or a few weeks ago, and one of our friends was like laughing. She's like, oh my gosh, she goes, you have baby fever so bad. Because the way that I was carrying the rabbit, and the rabbit just cuddles into me anyways. But it's just, an inanimate object does not replace a living thing. To me, saying a stuffed animal will replace the loss of an animal, or an animal will replace the loss of a baby, that doesn't even work, at least in my opinion, either. So that's where, like, with the question that gets asked, like, why don't you just adopt? Well, in my case, we are looking into it. It's an option in the future. Maybe the near future. Like, currently we're renting, and we're renting a smaller home, so right now, fostering another child, well, we would have to move stuff around. We probably could fit a crib in here somewhere. It's not feasible. It's not fair at this point. But, purchasing a home, I plan on having either a nursery somewhere or having the crib in our bedroom again, which if we do foster to adopt or have another child, it would go to the real baby. I do have that separate crib that I can use to display my dolls in our bedroom or whatnot, but that would not be used for a real baby. That would be dolls only, but we do have the crib that would be safe for a real child. And I'm kind of just rambling right now, so that's just kind of my opinion on answering the question that I've seen thrown around this community of reborns, having children versus adopting, and what your opinion is on it. So you can either leave a comment below on this topic, or if you want to make your own video on it, I'd love to hear your guys' opinions. So I will see everyone in the next one. Bye.